So let me do a quick little intro again. This is Dan Rihn talking about using CU to analyze cross-country and long-distance flights. And he's going to give us a very good introduction, as well as some actually pretty kind of a little bit of a deep dive into the tool of CU and how that is an amazing tool to really learn how pilots can analyze other pilots and look at their flights and learn from those pilots. So go ahead, Dan, take it away.
Thanks, Chris. Let me go to share screen here. And here we are. Go to that.
Looks good.
Is that coming up?
Yeah, just go into the slideshow and then we'll get to just the individual slides.
Yeah, I thought I did. There we go.
Great, looks good.
Okay. I don't know about my great experience in cross country, but I've been flying gliders actually for over 50 years, but with a big hiatus right in the middle. Soloed when I was 14, and because I did that, I've actually received a couple years ago my Wright Brothers Master Pilot Award for 50 years of flying. Did a lot of competition aerobatics in between when I took my hiatus, and then decided to get back to my first love of soaring around 2000, and joined the club and owned several gliders, 4 I think now, and still own 2 of them, 126E and an SH-31MI, and love them both, having a good time with them. I'm going to talk about CU and how to use CU to evaluate your flight. And probably most of you here, I know a lot of the names I'm seeing. I'm sure you all know how to use CU. Some perhaps not. So I'm going to do a little bit of backtracking on talking about where to get CU and what it's all about. And then I'm going to go through an analysis of 2 different flights that of mine. And very different. One is a triangle, one's an out return. And when you go through statistics, you can kind of see some of the various different parameters that are scored. And it's kind of interesting. And then I'm going to show something just kind of for fun here. I'm going to take, we had a great flight of 6 of us actually that flew a triangle last Labor Day weekend. And I'm going to put them all up at one time and put them on CU, and I'll show you how you can do that. That's kind of fun to do, and do a little animation and play around a little bit with that. So CU can be found at navitar.com. That's the name of the company. I believe they started, you guys can maybe correct me if I have it wrong, but it was around 2000 or so when they got started. The CU was their first product. There were a few other competing softwares to look at flights that were, I know I had one and it was terrible. I couldn't understand. It was all in German. It wasn't very good. CU really put it all together, did a great job. And since then, they've come out with several other products and even branched off. There's 2 guys, Andre and Erasm, or I've forgotten their last names now, in Slovenia. One of them, Erasm, has gone off and developed LXNav, another super bunch of products. But anyways, when you go onto the Navitar website, you go into gliding, and there's CU right there. And it's not to be confused with CU Navigator, CU Cloud, and CU Mobile. Those are all different products. So we want to look at just CU when you do it. And this is it over here on the next page of their website. It's got kind of a neat thing. You can do a free trial for a while. You can purchase the software outright, or every year you can do a subscription, and then you get all of the updates as it goes along. And it works out pretty nicely. Let me see if we can do it. Okay. So what do you get? Well, these are the 2 flights we're going to talk about. I'm showing them 2 different ways. The over on the left is just showing a flight that I did. It was that one of the 6 flights that all of us did when we were around the 500-kilometer triangle. It shows the terrain and the you can see the Edwards Air Force Base restricted area, Channel Lake, things like that. So it's really nice view of what you get of your flight. I'll get more into that in a few minutes. You can also do a 3D map over here on the right side. And you can include airspace. I sometimes I've overlaid sectionals on there. It's a little busy when you do that, but you can do that. 3D map, as I mentioned, and put all of the various waypoints. Jim Staniforth does a great job for our area down here in the southwest corner of the United States of producing all of the waypoints for all of the southwest region. And then the animation, which I'm going to talk about at the very end of my presentation. So you also get a barogram, and this is a whole lot better than what, I never had to do it, fortunately, but I did see a lot of the guys do it when I was a little kid, making these smoked foil and barographs and all the crazy things they had to do. Now we just get it electronically, and it's really nice. And then what we're going to dive into today is over on the right-hand side of all the statistics. And boy, CU puts out a bunch of them. And we're going to just focus on a few of them that I think if you look at, understand, and study, it will help you get some insight into how you're doing with your flying, and especially your cross-country flying. So I've got two flights that we're going to talk about. First one is that triangle that I mentioned, and another one is an out and return that I did last year, 2020 actually. And two very, very different flights, but you'll see in the end which one actually scores higher. Kind of interesting. So the first flight is the triangle. And this was, like I said, we did this shortly after Labor Day. And this is what we call a start on leg triangle. So we're starting here in the Mountain Valley area. It's actually starting at Dill Hill, which is a hill just on the ridge just south of Mountain Valley Airport. First turn point was Sakatar. You can see this red quadrant here. You have to enter that quadrant to get credit for turning that turn point. So the turn point is actually here at the apex. But as you can see, I turned out here in the corner of it. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And then the other ones I pretty much turned right at the apex. The next one is Mount Pinos. Next one down here is Mount Baldy. And then back, of course, to Dill Hill. And that was a declared and completed flight and received 643.96 OLC points. And just for a little jogging of memory, if you're not familiar with kilometers to miles, that's 310.7 miles is the 500-kilometer triangle. This particular one is a little bit longer than the, just 500 because of waypoints, you can't get them exactly to 500 kilometers. So when you download your flight, your IGC, that stands for International Glider Council, as I recall. That's the format of the file. When you download it in using CU, if you press the right button of your mouse, you get all these parameters shown over here on the right-hand side. So you get OLC plus, and it shows your flight path. And then if you had a triangle, it'll also show that. Then there's all these other parameters, which I'm not going to get into tonight, but FAA gliders, OLC, HG, PG, I don't even know what some of these are. I've never really paid a lot of attention to them. But you can go through all of these and see all the different scores that you got. The flight path is shown in, you can actually see the path there. The declaration is the green, and then the triangle that you actually flew. Now here's a case, I don't even see it here. I just missed that little apex, so it actually is going to score me all the way out to where I did that turn. The other ones were pretty much on the apex, and that's in red. So the next page you can go to when you're in CU, this is the header of CU, is you can click on this guy right here, and this stands for the statistics. And then you have about 3 or 4 different things you can look at. One is the whole flight. If you did a task like this one, you can actually go in and break it down in each leg and get statistics for each specific leg. I'm going to keep it on the flight this time because I know a lot of the guys are probably just flying around locally that haven't used this before. So if you just use the flight, that's plenty good for what you're going to be doing. And then the phases, that is a breakdown of every part of your flight, when you went straight, when you thermal, how fast you flew, all kinds of things. And this is relatively new. It's only a couple of years they've done this. We're showing you the badges that you would have earned from that flight. That's kind of interesting to see as well. So when you get this page, it shows the task distance. Now, because it's not exactly the 500 kilometers I mentioned, it's actually a little bit over 330 miles. It shows that that's what you declared. And then it shows, well, how did you fly it? And I flew 57.4 kilometers per hour, or knots, excuse me, and a little over 100 kilometers per hour. And it was a triangle. And then also you have a lot of statistics about your circling and your straight. And those are some of the things we're going to get into quite a bit more. And I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to keep all these statistics for the entire flight. So it's a little bit different because, you know, if you're getting ready to start and you're circling around a long time, that's going to all be included in the scores that I'll be showing you, in the statistics I'll be showing you. But if you do it just for your task, it kind of narrows that down a little bit more. So let's look at the circling statistics. How did I do? Well, I circled 28% of the flight, and some of the goals that I have for myself, they've been kind of handed down. I've got a spreadsheet, don't even know the history of it. I think it came from the US team of goals to try to achieve. And 20 or less % of circling is what the goal is. And as you can see, I didn't do that. I was above that. 28 thermals, that's a lot of thermal. Try to keep your thermals left and right the same so you don't get asymmetrical. That was a big thing in competition aerobatics. You could get handed real easy if you didn't practice both ways. But, you know, sometimes it makes sense to go one direction if it's into the wind or you're on a ridge or mountainside or something. So I you know, that's just something to be aware of. But I don't try to beat myself up over it if I don't get exactly 50%. And then down below here is the tries. And this is something that I try to work a lot on, and I didn't do very good on this flight. This is where you think you're in a thermal and you turn and you waste a lot of time trying to find it, and then you realize it's not a thermal and you move on. Well, I did that 11 times, and that's a lot of wasted time, wasted effort. So that's not too good. Going down, so how did I do? Well, the 20%, as I said, that's a little too slow, and it shows in my speed. Circling 35 and 63%, 50-50 is what you should try to achieve. But like I say, that doesn't always work out that way. 11 tries is a little bit more than I would like. Altitude gain versus altitude loss, 16.2%, and try to keep that below 10%. So that was not real good either. So, you know, all that said, you'll see later on, I did about as good as everybody else did that day on that flight. So I'm not going to beat myself up too much, but these are the goals that you try to achieve to continually do better. For the straight part of it, I flew 72% of the flight straight. And this is the mean L over D of 60. Now, for the goal for that is you use 1.5 times the best L over D of your glider. So my glider is 52 L over D, so I got to do 78, and I was pretty short of that. So that can be used some improving. And then the netto rising, that's keeping the glider in the good energy band, I'll say, of the air that's available to you. And I did okay with that. 56% is not too terrible. And your goal for that should be, where do I have that? 60%. So I'm just under that. Deviation, This one's a tough one on a triangle, especially this particular triangle, because you're starting on leg for one, and two, you've got some airspace to go around. And where the triangle is laid out is pretty awkward to fly exactly straight. So I had a deviation of 17.2%. And the goal for that is, you want to try to keep that below 20, which I just barely did. So the report card for that part of it is L over D of 60 is a little low. Netto rising 56%, that's a little low. And the task deviation 34.1%, that's too high, but I'm going to say in this particular case, I'm not going to get too concerned about it. I could have done better, could have done straighter for sure. No question about it. But it's a course that's laid out in an awkward way. You're not going to fly from Sacatar directly to Mount Pinos over the San Joaquin Valley. That's pretty crazy. You'll be landing in Bakersfield. So the next flight is an out and return. And this one I did in 2020. And this was up to Boundary Peak and back. And again, you click on the right and you get this OLC plus score here. And it shows that I have this little tiny triangle. And it automatically computes all the rules for getting a triangle. You have to have your start and finish be within 1,000 meters. And it'll take all of that into account and work that out for you. But that's a pretty wimpy triangle. But you're doing an out return, and that's pretty typical. If you're flying up and down a ridge, you may not have any. And the only reason to be honest with you, the only reason I got any triangle points here was that there was a huge rainstorm right here, and I diverted following a better energy line here away from the rain, and that's why I ended up with some triangle points. But you'll see here, I did do it a lot faster than I did the triangle. So again, going through statistics, the whole flight. Task was 378 miles. Did it at a speed of 75.3 knots. And we'll get into the circling and statistics. Now this one circled 16%. Well, that's a whole lot better. Remember, the goal is 20. So did much better there, kept it straight. It was a lot better day too, I might add. Only 15 thermals, and 58% were right, 42% left, so it's pretty even. And I kept the tries down to only 4 tries. So that was also a big improvement. So you want to go straight as much as you can, obviously, when you're trying to go cross country. You're in a race, whether you know it or not, because you're racing against time, because there's only a certain number of available hours in the day that lift is being generated. So you're always racing against the clock. And going the wrong way and making mistakes with tries certainly wastes a lot of time. So altitude gain versus loss was good as well, 6.7%. So overall, this was a much better flight in some regards. Talk about that next. I guess after this. Straight, how did I do? 84% straight and a mean L over D of 85. So that's meeting those goals pretty nicely. Deviation was much lower, much straighter flight, as you saw. Could have even deviated a little bit less if I'd done a little bit better job, perhaps. But like I said, I was fighting with Mother Nature, the big thunderstorm. Had a little diversion. So it was overall a much better flight. L over D of 85 is excellent. Netto rising 57%. Just a little bit low, but not bad. Deviation 12.7%. That's very good. But as you'll see, flying a triangle is much more challenging. So I actually earned more points flying that triangle, much lower speed, and in reality, much worse flying than this particular flight. So when I compare the two, I got for the triangle 643 points. And a lot of that was because of the triangle bonus points. And you get bonus points for flying a triangle because it's a lot harder. If you just go up and back the same energy band or ridge or whatever it is that's creating your lift, you just go up and back. That doesn't take nearly as much skill as a equilateral triangle, which is going into different places and different areas. So it's much more challenging. The Baron Hilton Challenge was kind of interesting this last year. We flew several triangles at Tehachapi Southern Sierra Club, and we ended up #1 in the USA and North America and 6th in the world. I didn't even know this existed, to be honest with you, until the end of the season. And the Baron Hilton Challenge is, it requires you that you declare your triangle flight. It must be declared before you go. And of course, you have to achieve it. So you can't just go out and fly a triangle and say you did it. It has to be declared first. And that's why we did so well. Some of my friends said, well, gosh, we fly triangles all the time. Well, you didn't do very good. And I said, well, did you declare it? No. Well, that's why you didn't win. So for the out and return was actually flew further, but I got less points because I didn't get that triangle bonus. Flew a whole lot faster. I did do a lot better score on the OLC Speed League. It's one of the fastest flights of the season in our region.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a whole lot better. And to learn more about a lot of this, Clemens Cepek, I don't know if you guys have seen any of his blog or his YouTube videos he's put out, Soaring, Chest in the Air. He gets into a lot of these details of the statistics in the one I have below laid out here from his flying at the contest last year at Nephi. But he's got a whole excellent series where he's very analytical in his flying and learning from these statistics. So I've kind of looked at a lot of what he's been doing this last year and said, oh, that's interesting. I think I'll start doing that a little bit more myself. So that's why I wanted to share it with you guys. So then we'll get into the last part of this talk, and this is comparing flights with your fellow friends. And this is a lot of fun to do just anytime. If you guys are, you got a bunch of your buddies that were all flying the same day, is just at the end of the day, load up all of their IGC files, put it on CU. It's easy to do, and just compare. You can learn a lot from that. You can see where you made mistakes. You can see where your friends made mistakes and where they did better, or it's just interesting. I'll be darned. Look at that. He went way over there and fell out of the sky, or went way over there and found lift that I didn't even know was there. So that's kind of interesting. So it's really interesting when you do it for this this particular day where we were all flying the same energy, the same band, and the same declared triangle. So I'm going to show you how to do that. There were 6 of us that flew this. You'll see when I call them up. 7 Delta Romeo is me. Britain Blue Dorn is C Bravo Bravo. Tango Romeo is Tom Riley. Whiskey X-Ray is Walt Rogers. 20 Charlie is Niv Levy. And the bottom here is Jim Staniforth. So I'll show you how to animate this. This is what it's going to look like when we're all going off on the first part of our leg. You can use CU to do this animation, and you can synchronize it with several different ways. Real time, which is probably the best way to do it when you're comparing just for a day flight, see how you did compared to everybody else. Takeoff, that's not so important. Start time is fun with this, like this particular flight, where we're all starting at the same point. We're all doing the same triangle flight path. So that's the way I'm going to show it tonight. Finish time would be interesting too. You can synchronize it where everybody ends at the same time. But this looks, when you do it this way from the start, it actually looks like a race. Kazoo night. You can change the animation right here from, you don't want to sit here and watch our 6-hour flight, real time. That gets kind of boring. So you can speed that up all the way to 200 times. Is there not who's ever sneezing?
You know,
And
mute
let's
buttons
see.
are very useful for sneezes.
So I'm going to get out of this and call up the other files. Let's see, I've got to share again, I believe.
Yeah, the new share should start that.
There we go. So I've called up all these flights, and here's Dill Hill, and I've got everybody at the starting gate at the same time. So I've artificially moved everybody's time to be the same. So we're all starting at the same time. Then using CU, I can use this little clock here, and I'm going to put it at 100. And let's see, I got to get this out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. Unfortunately, all of your controls, Christopher, are right over my what I need to see to do.
Oh, really?
How can I show those controls?
You can go to view. If you go up the upper right and look at view and change it to side by side possibly, and that may help you. So you can see it if it's going to push all the video screens off to the right side. So it's not up in the top in your way.
I don't see view.
Yeah, way up in the upper right of the screen. You should see a button that says view. You can change it from standard to side by side. Or maybe I need to do that. Hold on. Does that help you?
No, it's the controls that are in my way.
Oh. Minimize your, no, don't want to do that.
Yeah, let's see.
Look under view options. Up in the middle,
this-
kind of in the top there. So your controls are in the way for you. I lost your voice.
So let me just do it down here. Maybe I can do it.
Yes.
Oh, this isn't going well.
It's either view options. Yeah, we didn't have this problem last night.
There we go.
Got it.
So here we are. We're off. We're all racing. And I'm going to slow it down a little bit here. So you can
Some of
see.
us,
we're not
Dan,
seeing-
only see a static view
Yeah,
of
we're
run
not-
CU
yeah, we're
animation,
not-
slide 19, that's it.
Yeah, we're not seeing the.
We're still on your PowerPoint brief.
Yeah, we're seeing the whole PowerPoint. The whole. So there we go.
Bingo.
Is that working now?
Yay. Yep,
Bingo, now we got it.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Well, I'd back it up if I could get to these controls. There we go. I figured out how to move the controls. So let's start over.
Yeah, just stop it and start over or break it up.
And I'm just
There
gonna
we
fly everybody in a tail slide.
go.
It's really hard to do when you're thermal.
Yeah. Actually, I can do this.
But it is possible if you wave fly.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to where I had everybody. So you see here's where we're all jockeying around in position. And there we go. And we're all off and running. So you can see the different paths that some of us took. Tom's over here on the right. I'm kind of going down the middle. Britton's going right a little bit left to me. Jimmy's way ahead of us. We'll speed it up a little bit more here. I'm not going to spoil it to tell you who wins.
Yeah, I won't say anything either.
So here's our turn point up here, Sakatar. So you can see we all had to fly the typical line up along the ridge line here to hit that turn point. And I didn't even try to go right over the airport. Yeah, I just went up to hit the sector and came back. See what Jimmy does. He pretty much went right over it. I'm lollygagging around trying to get courage or something. Okay, turn around. So while we're up here around Sakatar, Jim Staniforth is long gone. But we're catching up fast now. Need a horse race announcer to do this, right? And they're off.
It's a lot more exciting at 200 times, isn't it? Real time.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. You can kind of, we could play it real time, be here all night. That wouldn't be very exciting at all. So now we're crossing over Cache Peak area, Jimmy is anyway, and going off over to Mount Pinos over in this direction. So here's what I was saying, you know, you wouldn't want to fly that straight across over the San Joaquin Valley. That would not be a very good flight.
Lots of landing opportunities.
Yeah, there are. You don't get points for that though, not OLC points. Yeah, this got a little tricky over here. We all had to go over to the Fraser Mountain area and scrap for some lift.
Weather overlays or QNIMs at the least. Can you?
Oh, there were clouds everywhere that day. It was nice. Some worked and some didn't. It was a good day. Several of us flew another triangle about 2 days later. This was on the Monday of Labor Day weekend, and I came back up on Wednesday and flew to Moose Peak, Porter Peak, and back to Mountain Valley. That was even better triangle, actually. So now we're going down into the Antelope Valley area, just north of Agua Dulce. And that guy Walt in his little standard class discus, kicking butt.
Dan, you were mentioning last night when we were going over this, you can also just see it from the standard, top view, which is
Right.
nice too, because you kind of get a little bit better sense of who's where. But this is a little more, a little more dynamic because you do see altitude, elevations, and terrain more so than the other view.
You kind of get a little different feel for it. So this is something that I recommend doing every now and then, just to, if you have a chance where you had a lot of people flying and they all did reasonably well, you can compare your flight to theirs. So now Jim just turned Mount Baldy, so did Walt, so did Britton. Back behind him a little bit. So getting home, in 3D, I don't show the restricted airspace because it shows it in 3D. So you see these big, huge columns that, especially over Edwards. So I take those out when I'm looking at it in 3D. But you all know that we have to fly around that. And of course, that day, you don't always have lift go right in a nice straight line either. We had to fly quite a bit over here, at least I did. Tom, I think you were behind me or with me. I think we were together actually in real time. And we were out in here getting a little bit higher to make our final glide. So what this also shows is that just because you left earliest doesn't make you the fastest. Oops, I should have slowed that down. Let's do this. Let's pause that for a moment. Let's go back. See who won. Might surprise you.
Yeah, it looks like Walt.
Yeah. So Walt in his 15-meter, see if I can zoom in on it. Standard class discus beat everybody. Pretty good, huh?
Mhm.
I have to
Although-
give credit to Jim Staniforth. He was kind of marking that last thermal there. I think he slacked off a little bit.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he would have won.
Looked like
I
he
don't know.
it looked like he climbed twice as high as Walt did at that last with that final glide. You know, otherwise he would have been ahead.
He was
Yeah.
being a good shepherder for the rest of us, I think.
Yeah. But that was a good day. The most important thing is we all had a really good time. There were a few other people that flew not quite the entire course here, so I didn't include them. Mark Grubb, actually, he had the really fast flight. He flew further to the north, came in and joined us for most of this flight, and just smoked all of us. But he did not fly this specific course, so I didn't include him. Kathy Fosha also had a really nice flight with us for a good portion of the triangle.
It looked like
So
a lot of people had some really long glides on that southern ridge there too, Dan.
yeah, there were a lot of good glides there, you know, and like I said, I showed you what my statistics were, and you know, the other people's were even better. I probably should have used theirs to show you. Let's see.
The big question was whether to come straight back or take more of the line along the San Andreas Fault like you did and Tom Riley.
Yeah,
I thought it made sense just to come straight back because I knew there'd be something there.
well, that's why you're a champion glider pilot. I'm a
Actually,
weekend
I didn't know for sure. I'm just bullshitting you. I did, but I thought so.
So, you know, Walt, I didn't realize you were on. You know, you might want to talk just a moment on the Baron Hilton Challenge and what was prior to that, the Baron Hilton Cup.
Sure. The Baron Hilton Cup, like
I'll slip
you
this
were.
play and plan to you. How's that, Chris? Go ahead, Walt.
Yeah, well, the Baron Hilton Cup is a really challenging flight that I was working on throughout the 90s and until I won it. The last very episode of the Baron Hilton, the one that we don't have today, where we got recognition up at the Hilton Ranch. It's just a blast to use the maximum amount of the day to get the longest FAI triangle you can get. You can still do this now. You don't get the tremendous reward of going to Hilton's Ranch, but it's still a lot of fun just for accomplishment's sake. Starting at the early as you can and going 900 or 1,000 kilometers on a triangle. And you do get a plaque, you do get recognition through OLC now. And I think even the SSA recognizes the best Baron Hilton Cup in the US. Is that right? I think it is.
I think so. They call it, they changed the name from the Baron Hilton Cup to the Baron Hilton Challenge now.
Ah, yes.
And like you say, you don't get to go to that really cool ranch. But I was telling Christopher all about that last night. He didn't know anything about that, so I told him I'd ping on you to describe the experience a little bit.
Well, my wife loved it, going up to the ranch and being pampered and eating gourmet food and getting a balloon ride. And she got a ride in a Stearman up through the canyons.
God.
And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'll bet. Good
It
old
was
days.
truly Disneyland award for a glider pilot who loves to fly cross country.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
What was
located.
What was Jim Stanifer doing? Other than having an extra 10 feet of wing on anybody else, that put him out so far ahead for most of the way? Can you quantify that?
I haven't looked closely, or at least when we all did that, I don't remember, other than the usual, Jim thermals very efficiently. Thermal's tight, doesn't spend a lot of time, doesn't waste a lot of time. He knows where to thermal, when to thermal. And he puts the pedal to the metal when he's going fast. I've been right next to him and, thinking, man, I'm really going, and he's really going away from me. So, he flies very fast. He's got more experience than a lot of us.
Was everybody carrying ballast?
I think
I-
Walt was.
Yeah, I
I
was.
think Walt was the only one. I don't know if Britain was, probably not. I don't recall it.
Britain was dry.
Okay.
I know Jim likes to fly with ballast a lot, but I don't know if he then?
I don't think he
No,
did
he-
then. He doesn't have the bags. I don't
He
know.
doesn't have exactly. 31 is that he's got doesn't have bags for it yet. I do have bags.
Maybe it's got
I just-
built-in ballast, I guess, but
I just put on the short wingtips for keep the wing loading up. You can
So
see what it
Dan-
does for me. I'm way behind.
Dan, there was a question that Bill posed early on. He says he didn't understand how altitude gained and altitude lost are so different.
yeah, can you explain that statistic, the altitude gain loss thing, and what is? It looks like, is the altitude loss while you're turning? I didn't really understand what that statistic was trying to say.
Or is it related to Netto?
Let me see.
Was it
I'll be
when-
honest, I don't always understand a lot of these statistics myself. So am I sharing my PowerPoint again?
Yes, was
It's
kind of
up
was
near
one
Yeah,
of the first interp slides, one of the second or third.
Be right in here, I think.
Yeah,
yeah.
that one.
So I gained, 24,000 feet, but I lost 16,000 feet. Sorry, 1,600 feet.
It's lost while circling. That's-
Okay.
So it's just looking at your circling performance, altitude up. and
Correct.
down.
Yeah, that's right.
So Dan, it seems like your numerator and denominator are reversed.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that would make more sense.
Oh,
Yes, you got it. Yeah. I'm sure that's the other way around. Now that you look at it.
That makes more, yeah, okay, that makes.
oh,
more-
sorry.
Yeah.
Bad math.
Yeah.
What you're showing is the altitude loss versus altitude gain. And then
But
everything
in-
else would be correct.
But that's
Yeah.
while circling though, right? Is that the idea that you were,
Yeah.
a certain
Well,
percentage you were,
Another way to look at it, it's not real clear. Let me go to a barogram here. I've got, it's hard to do on this one because if you really look at your circling while you're going up and zoom in, what you can do is on the You Barogram, you can actually scroll in on that and you can see a lot of little details. In this scale, because this is for the whole flight, you can't see it, but a lot of times you'll see all these little jigs and jags when you're going up. So that means you're falling out of the center of the thermal and you're not doing really good and you're thermaling. Obviously, if it's the straighter line and more vertical is what you want to see, but they don't always look that way when you look at them really close under the microscope. That's really pointed out in the book Advanced Soaring. That's where I learned that trick where you just take the barogram and just put your cursor right on that spot and then scroll in and you see, oh, that wasn't so good.
so like that would count even if it was like a quarter of the circle that you lost some altitude as you went around, that's
Yes.
how that, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Now, that's a good point because it'll probably would also depend upon your interval. I use 5-second interval typically on my logger, which is nice when I go to look at it when I'm done, is that I can see my circling. If it's a square, that's good, or a pentagon, it's not too bad. And that's another thing I learned out of advanced soaring, was a good trick. I just saw an article though recently by G. Dale, and he was saying, well, in competition, you don't want to do that, because he had a 5-second interval and he ended up losing a contest by a second or two because his logger was falling behind. At least that's what he said. And the guys who were doing 1-second intervals had a smoother finish, I guess, if you will. I don't know, Walt, you fly competition, you might understand that a little bit better than me.
But you always want to fly with at least a 1-second rate if you have it. Memory is cheap, and you get a much better. You don't get this terrible aliasing. 5 seconds. What a circle is? What, 20 seconds? 15 or 20 seconds? So
Yours are.
Yeah, mine are.
20. Any rate. Yeah, if you have a logger and there's not a memory issue, a fairly modern one like a Nano, just run it at 1 second.
Yeah. Well, what the book was saying, if you ran it at 5, it's easy to then analyze without having to do a lot of looking too closely at it and using your calculator and everything to see if you're circling in 20 seconds. You can just look at your path and it'll show a square or a pentagon. So that's why they recommended that.
It doesn't make any sense to me, but at any rate, I heard you.
Yeah. Okay.
As opposed to some elongated rectangle,
Say that again, Bill.
as opposed, a square or a pentagon, as opposed to some elongated rectangle, you mean, or what?
Hmm.
You only have 4 points on a circle. That means you've done it very quickly. So that makes it a square. So it's
Yeah.
good for visualization. It's not good for scoring.
Oh, is it the shape or the number of points that you're looking at? Dan?
Same.
It's the shape. Well, it's both. If you fly a pentagon, then you've got 5 sides, and if it's 5 seconds a side, well, that was 25 seconds.
So squares are better than pentagons.
Let's see. I was going to see if I could show you what I'm talking about. I've got
You had an image of that before because you showed.
Yeah. Now let's see if I can find it.
Yeah, you showed that. I forgot which
Yeah, I'm getting there.
panel. Yeah, okay.
So here's what I was talking about. This is the part that I took out of this briefing because I thought it was getting too long. It turned out the briefing went a lot faster. If you look at a thermal on the left side here, am I sharing this now?
No, you have to
You
share
try.
again. You have to hit that reshare again.
All right. There we go. How's that?
There we go. There we go.
There we go.
There we go.
So here's the barogram full scale, and this happens to be a pretty good thermal though. And if you zoom in on it, you can see that was pretty straight. But if it wasn't, if you had like here, there's a good example. That's not so good. Fell out of it there. And here's what I'm talking about here. Here's my path. This was with a 4-second, as I recall, on this one. And this is what I'm saying. If you can look at it pretty quickly and see, okay, I'm doing about 30-second turns. 27.5 is what it turned out to be.
Yeah, 24-second turns there. I don't think I turn in 15 seconds. Okay, that was an exaggeration.
Thought you're just bragging again. So that's what I was talking
Only
about.
inadvertently, Dan.
Yeah. So that was the point I was trying to make, is that it's you can do it quicker in just looking at it and seeing what you're doing. Otherwise, a lot of times what you have to do is go to using CU. You can use go to the next thermal feature and look at the time, and then note the heading, and then keep stepping it around through each of the turns, counting all the turns, and get to you're finally done. And then note the time there, note the number of turns, and figure out how did you do. So that's a lot of work. you can do it. It's just takes time. But this is a lot quicker. Say, oops, got to turn a little tighter. Not bad, but got to turn a little tighter. That's the only point I was making, Walt. If it's 1 second, those are all nice, beautiful round circles. You can't tell, other than the size of them. Maybe you can kind of get a glimpse of that, the size of them. All right.
Where did
Well,
the
that's
statistics that you got down there, is that just what you figured out, or is that come out of CU somewhere?
no, that's what I figured out.
7.5 seconds per
Yeah.
turn.
So yeah, and I think I made a mistake in here for where I topped out, but this was a pretty good thermal. 1,000 foot a minute thermal, 10 knots.
Right.
That was actually on that flight that I did the Boundary Peak out and back, and this thermal was just on the north side. You can see where it is in the barogram. Here's Mountain Valley, just a little bit on the outbound, the northbound, and that was the best thermal of the day. And from there, I just took off. It was a great day.
Cool. All right. Are there any other questions from the gallery? And
Yeah, this is Chris. Dan, great talk, by the way. And my question is about tries. How are they scored? And large number of tries, is that a really bad thing, or does that show that you are rejecting a lot of thermals and not sticking with them and moving on?
It would show if you did that for sure.
Okay.
If you rejected it, there is a criteria for it, which unfortunately, Chris, I can't remember the top of my head. I think it's someone can help me with this maybe, but I thought it was 45-degree deviation or one whole turn or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but I know for me, I always get frustrated with myself thinking I hit a thermal and I crank into it and can't find it, or it wasn't really there. It was a gust or something, and then I lost a lot of time. Got to keep moving.
But at least you didn't turn all the way around. That's what I kind of feel is a waste of time. If it's really bad and I turn 360, it would have been better just to keep on going, even if I turned 90 degrees or so.
Yeah. I think it's beyond 45 is where they call it a try.
Thanks.
okay,
Is there any other
other-
analysis we can look at in these barograms? Like it looked like you left that thermal and the slope was still the same. Was that because you felt the need to get moving, or because it was topping out somehow?
I don't remember.
Maybe
Well,
there
it's 14,000 feet, awfully close to home, and there were some big clouds over here,
I
so
thought
that's
there was-
probably it.
I
Just
bet there was a cloud.
Get moving. Because after I hit that one, I knew it was going to be 10 knots every thermal from then on, right?
Sure, of
Here,
course.
this is Walt here. Here's a rule of thumb. If you're really looking great and you're just throttling it and going fast and ending the climbs when it drops to 400 feet a minute, when you're flying at 1,000, you'll get this nice sharp point at the top here. Rule of thumb, when you're heading up into high country, you want to keep the throttle back a little bit, because as you move into high country, your altitude range decreases going up into the Sierras, and you can drive yourself right into the ground very easily. I don't have to tell you how I know that. Going up north of Walker Pass or Onyx or Lake Isabella, you want to fly like Goldilocks, not too hot, not too cold, but just right. The only one who really mastered that I know is Ingo Renner, who just recently passed away in Australia. What did he have, like 12,000 hours in gliders or something?
More
like
than that, it was unbelievable.
It was up maybe 20. I don't know.
I thought it was over 30,000 hours of flying gliders.
Was it that? Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. With that kind of practice, and you become just intuitive whether to go or whether to stay, or whether to press or whether to be a little more conservative. So that's what's exciting about cross-country flying.
There was a commentary on one of the obituaries about him, some guy that flew with him. And Ingo told him to fly over, take this heading, fly over there because there's going to be lift over there. And the guy writing the story said, asked him, how do you know that? He goes, I just know.
Yeah, I was at the Worlds in 1983 at Hobbs, New Mexico, a young kid helping with the weather. And he won in a Nimbus 3 of the 14 days or 13 days. He won all but 2 or 3 of the days. I don't know if anybody knows that, but he's just an incredible pilot. We'll be hearing more stories about him. And I think there's a podcast this month on one of the 2 podcasts about him, people reminiscing. So no matter how many times you go out and return up the Sierras and do these flights like you're talking about, Dan, there's always just learning that more skill and getting more of that intuition of how to read the weather. When do you throttle it? When do you kind of lay back a little bit, not get in trouble, and find the best clouds, find the energy lines. Most of what I'm saying here it becomes intuitive after a while. I'll shut up now.
Thanks, Walt. No, getting all these kind of little tidbits from senior pilots is, it's definitely useful, helpful, insightful gold. So, yeah.
Well, that's really the whole goal, that I saw in this is that you learn a lot from your fellow pilots, and especially ones that are better than you can learn a whole lot from. And doing this analysis like I was showing, and then looking at some of the other pilots at the same time, you can really get some insight into how you can improve and what to look for in your flying. And it's not like the people say, well, it's practice. Well, yeah, for me, I don't seem like I do that. I just kind of get it into my head that that's something I got to work on, and I do it. I tried to do it anyway. It's just having the knowledge of it is I guess what I'm trying to say, rather than, today I'm going to go out and I'm just going to thermal like crazy and that's all I'm going to do. No, I don't do that. I probably should, but I don't do that.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a combination of, new learning, knowledge, new learning, making goals, having goals for yourself each time you fly. And then just taking those tidbits and tips from the expert pilots, and you kind of store that away and then try to implement and try to do it, and then you come back, you say, oh, I kind of did some of it, but I didn't do that part, what do you think? So this is definitely a shared knowledge sport, no doubt about it.
The interesting part about all this is the super pilots are for real, but you get a short tail view, so you have to do analysis off the traces. You can't keep track of them long enough to really do it in real time.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of CU, is that it's forever once you've done it. It's like getting a photograph of the whole thing with a whole lot of detail. So it's fun to go in and look at it.
Sure, absolutely. Well, this has been very insightful and really helpful, Dan. Just super appreciate all your time you put into putting this talk together. And so I just appreciate all the other folks who join in here to keep the conversation going and keep it live and keep it real. So it's just really great to have these moments where we get together. And like I said, this will be online. I'll get them up on YouTube. I'll just I do a little tiny bit of editing, as I don't know a whole lot about that. But anyway, it'll be there on YouTube. And I guess we'll say for now, so long, good night, and stay safe. Enjoy the nice spring weather, and maybe we'll get some good thermaling weather coming up soon. And please do come back for next in 2 weeks, when Scott Lance will be talking about flight computers. And till then, thanks again for everybody for joining us, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thanks, Dan.
See you. Good night all.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Christopher.